Hey beauty babes, this is Kaylin. I'm coming at you with the voiceover since it was requested, and you'll have to bear with me a little bit here. I'm new to this and I'm learning my way, but we're going to get into a wet set today and some tips and tricks on how to actually perfect your spikes for these wet sets and any wispy sets. We're starting with a lash bath, of course, as you can see. And if you need any tips and tricks on prep, I definitely have a video on that as well on my channel, so do check that out. We're just going to continue with the prep here with the lash bath and then the eye pads and tape. I personally believe that a lash bath should be included in every single service, whether that be a full set or a fill. They're essential not only for removing makeup and oils from the eye area, but for your prep for your actual patches and tape that secure the bottom lashes. It really helps with those not moving, so you don't have to readjust too much throughout your entire service, and you can just get straight into lashing. On top of the lash bath helping with the prep for the extensions, it also really does improve your application and your retention. You can't apply extensions to dirty lashes, so when they're fresh and clean, it's the easiest way to apply extensions that will last a long time. And when you have long-lasting extensions, you have a happy client. Once we get those eye patches and tape applied, we're just going to readjust, especially those inner and outer corners, to make sure nothing's poking the client, and also fixing her mask if it's covering her nose, just so that her breath isn't affecting the application, since our glue is very sensitive to humidity and temperature, and we want to make sure that we're working with our tools, not against them. We're also going to make sure her hair is comfortable and that everything is comfortable throughout the entire service. I always check in with my clients throughout the entire application. Now let's get into some tips and tricks. For the purpose of this example, I'll be working with two different brands. These are some of my tried and trues, and I definitely recommend these to any beginners. They are very affordable as well. If you've never tried them out, definitely give them a shot and let me know how they work for you below. Different products will work for different people, so don't feel like you need to use any of the products I use in this video. This is just for an example. These are the adhesives I'll be using for this example today, and they're my current favorites. If you want more details on how to work with adhesive, let me know below. I'll also be using Live Base Bonder today to help me create my spikes, and this 45-degree angle tweezer. And here's my lash tile with my extensions, so let's get into it. Here I'm going to show you how to actually prepare your extensions with your bonder. So you just want to get your micro swab and get it fully saturated with the bonder so that you can apply that to your extensions. Then you just want to go in with that micro swab and apply the bonder to the extensions from the base to the tip, completely saturating them in that bonder. Then you'll take your spoolie and just brush them through, already making those spikes, as you can see. On the 17mm and 11mm, you can see the difference between the ones that I did actually saturate with bonder and the ones that I didn't. You can see the spikes are already pretty much formed for me. And I'll just take my tweezer and I'll start picking up my spikes. I'm not going to dip these in glue, just to show you how I actually pick them up first. You can see that I pick them up in the middle of the extension, not really near the base, so that I can actually keep that spike in the spike form and it doesn't spread out or fan out for me. And you can see that it does stay closed and it'll be ready for you to just dip in some adhesive. And I'll show you a few more times with both the Elon lashes and the T-Dance lashes. You'll see that the brand doesn't really make a difference, it's more so your technique. And here is me going in with the glue so that we can close those bases up. You see I picked it up the same way, just a few fibers at a time, and dipping just the very base. I sometimes like to place them on my finger before I actually apply them, just to make sure that the base is perfectly skinny and the fan is actually closed and not spread out at all. You just saw me double dip that extension into the adhesive, which is completely fine to do as long as you know your adhesive that you're working with. Let me know below if you ever double dip your extensions and what you think about it. The amount of fibers that you actually pick up for your spikes will determine what kind of outcome you have with your set. So if you want a more dramatic look, then definitely pick up more fibers. And if you're wanting a more natural look, then you want to pick up less fibers to give you thinner spikes, which give you a more natural look. And definitely always use a 0.3 diameter when creating spikes so that you have that flexibility to create different sizes of spikes depending on the natural lashes you're working with. I wanted to give you guys examples with 3 different lengths so you can see that no matter the length and no matter the brand, I'm using the same technique, which gives me the same result for spikes. This is personally my favorite way to create spikes. I have seen different ways, but this has been the easiest way for me to actually be able to create a full wet set. And if it helps you, let me know below if you try this out. You also don't need to feel pressured to use any kind of bonder. You don't have to use bonder. You can definitely use water. That works just as fine. As soon as they do dry out, however, they will get fluffy again, so you'll have to reapply the water throughout your application just to make sure you get those nice skinny spikes like you can see right now. I'm also going to show you what a spike looks like when it's completely dry without any bonder or water, and it will give you slightly more of a volume effect since we are working with volume lashes. With a wet set, you do typically want the fans to be closed and crisp so that they give you a more dramatic classic effect. Since classics can't be very thick as far as diameter, with volume lashes you can achieve a much thicker and dramatic classic set, which is the point of a wet style. You just want to pick up the lashes the exact same way that we did when they were wet. You just pick up as many extensions as you need and pull towards you, and then dip them straight into the adhesive. When they're completely dry, I do like to dip them a little bit further in. I would say at least halfway through the extension is dipped into the adhesive, so I make sure that it's completely closed and it doesn't fan out on me when I'm actually applying it to the natural lash. And you'll see what the difference looks like in just a moment here when I show you the little sponge. And here you can see the extensions side by side, the wet ones and the dry ones. At first glance you can't really tell much of a difference, but you can see that the dry extensions have a slightly more open tip and are a little bit more fluffy. The wet ones keep the tips closed together and keep them looking extra spiky and more like a classic lash. But when you do brush the wet ones out, you'll see that they look exactly like the dry ones, so the tips are no longer closed up together. They get a little bit of fluff to them. They're just narrow fans. So either way that you apply this is completely fine. If you choose to make narrow fans while you're actually applying them and then get them wet after, like you can see me doing right now, that will be just as effective, and you'll see that it gives you the exact classic wispy spiky look that you're looking for. At the end of the day, you really just want to do what works best for you. I choose to wet the extensions while I'm applying them just because it makes them easier for me to work with and easier for me to actually picture and see the set that I'm creating while I'm doing it. You can see that I'll be checking my work throughout the application, so having them wet while they're being applied helps me really visualize the final look and make sure that I'm achieving my goals and my client's goals for their set. Now we're just going to get into actually creating a wet set on my client. You can go ahead and enjoy the rest of this, which is just me lashing, and I'll be playing some music for you. If you have any further questions or any comments, please leave them down below and I'll be sure to get back to you guys. And remember to just do what works best for you, what's most comfortable for you. Let me know if you do end up using any of these tips in this video and if they were helpful for you. I'm also throwing in this map for this wet set that I created today. This is a kitten eye with D-curl in 0.3 diameter. You can definitely switch that up however you'd like for your client and for the look that they want. But you can definitely take this map and get creative. Another thing I do quickly want to mention, for a wet set, you do really want to make sure that the client has enough natural lashes so that they can have a full set. Just like with classic lashes, you need healthy natural lashes and an even lash line to get full coverage and to get that nice full look that you want to achieve with the wet set. If you're working with a very thin lash line or someone who has a low lash count or even has any gaps throughout their lash line, you may want to opt for something like a hybrid set or maybe a light volume set so that you can easily cover those things up and it won't be as noticeable in the set. With a wet set, it does have to be very symmetrical so that you have that wispy and even look that you're looking for. My beautiful client in this video definitely has extremely healthy, long natural lashes. You can see that some of her natural lashes are actually a little bit longer and poking out from the extensions. We are going for a wispy look, so the top layer is getting the longer lengths and the bottom layer is getting the shorter lengths. And I'm just making my spikes wet with the bonder, how I showed you in the example earlier in this video. I typically would use the tape back method, meaning I'd tape up the first layer, work on the bottom layer first, and then move on to the top. But just because I wanted to make sure that she had enough of the longer lengths for the wispiness of the set that she wants, I went ahead and just worked on both layers at the same time. I focused a lot of my extensions on the top layer and really made sure to cover the top layer completely with the longer extensions so that her set is as wispy as possible. And the lower layer will get the shorter lengths, making that a more dense and full look. And just so you can see a little bit better and more up close, I zoomed in on just one eye so that you can see in real time what isolation looks like. Isolation isn't easy for everyone, even for me, and I've been lashing for 3 years now. You can see that it still takes me a minute, and even attachment always doesn't go the way that I want. Sometimes they pop off, sometimes they don't want to stick. But just be patient with yourself and your extension. Try your best to get it attached properly, and if it's just not working, move on, throw out that extension and try again. Sometimes we as lash artists can get a little frustrated and get stuck on one lash that just doesn't want to take the extension, and I've found myself doing that quite a few times in the past, which cost me time in my set. So I've found that just moving on from that natural lash if it's not working with you and coming back to it always works for me and helps me avoid that frustration and wasting time trying to force it to stick when it just doesn't want to sometimes. You'll see that I'm constantly checking with my little lash mirror from the bottom on the actual set and the direction of my extension, so I make sure that they're all facing the right direction and that I don't have any wonky ones turning the wrong way, which can completely mess up the set if you don't pay attention to that and you aren't careful with the direction you're placing them. Playing with the extension a little bit after you've placed it and it's dry, just to make sure it's properly attached, is always my preferred way to make sure that there's going to be no problems with my retention or any extensions popping off when I brush through them at the end. If you just slightly wiggle them, pinch them together with the natural lash, or even slightly tug on the extension, it'll really help you make sure that you're attaching them properly and you won't have any issues at all with retention. I don't try to use my spoolie too much throughout my application. The only time I use it is like right now when you have extensions that are just kind of facing in opposite directions, just so that they are back in place. And you just saw me apply some more bonder as well so that I can really check them from the bottom and make sure that I am achieving the kind of style I want before I actually complete the set and then it's not what I wanted to achieve. And here you can see what I mean by proper attachment. I attached it from the side, I pinched it together, and I played around with it until it dried completely, making sure that it is attached from the base all the way up to the middle of the extension, which will make sure my retention is amazing. Now I'm just going to time lapse the rest of the set so you can see me filling in the bottom layer, mainly in this clip, for that density and darkness in the set, and to just finish it off and complete it. Let me know below if there's any other videos you guys would love to see from me. I can't wait to connect with you. And here's a final look from the bottom. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video and learned some new tips and tricks that you can implement into your wet sets. Let me know if any of this helped you today, and enjoy this final look. She looks so beautiful. I just can't.